Hi, I'm Melissa from polkadotchair.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make a braided headband. These headbands feature 3 strips of fabric braided together and then hot glued onto a Purchased headband that I got at the store. I made these for my girls when they were home this spring. They've seen these trendy headbands in stores everywhere and really wanted a set for themselves, and I figured that we could figure out how to make them. So let me go ahead and show you how to make the headbands. To make the headbands, you start with 3 strips of fabric. The fabric strips are cut to 2.5 inches by 21 inches long. I've got the 3 strips laid out here in the various stages that you'll have them as you create them for your headband. So the one on the bottom is just a fabric strip with a piece of fusible fleece attached to the back. You need to fold that in half lengthwise and stitch it on the long side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then turn it right side out and press it so that the seam is in the middle of the long strip. If you haven't used it before, I definitely recommend a set of turning tubes for this project. To use the turning tubes, you need to sew the short end of one of the strips closed. Then take your turning tube, I'm using the 1/2 inch tube, and insert it till it goes all the way to the end of your fabric piece that you stitched, all the way to the end of that side that is sewn. Then the turning tubes come with a couple of other tubes. This is a particularly long piece of fabric, so I inserted a paintbrush to the end of mine, but just any kind of stick that is longer than your fabric will work. So you just start pressing down the center of that stitched short side and push it through the other end of the turning tube, and you can see that makes it so much easier. Repeat this process 3 times so that you have 3 sewn strips of fabric. The next thing you want to do is to braid the strips. I think it's easier to attach the strips to the end of a quilt ruler or something so that you've got something to kind of get them to grip onto, and then you're just going to braid it the same way you would braid your hair, alternating strips on top of each other. I did sew my 3 strips together along the top edge before I started braiding, just to kind of help keep them from moving around too much. When you get to the end, pinch them off and then stitch across the bottom too. Now you're ready to attach them to the headband. To do that, just use a dab of hot glue, and then I like to use a binding clip to kind of hold that in place until the hot glue dries. Then you're going to need a bunch of heavy duty thread. I'm using Metler coordinate thread here. What we're going to do is wrap the ends of the headband so that they taper in, because you don't want like a big kind of block square at the end of the headband. You want to have a nice tapered edge. So to do that, just tie a knot in the thread, and then just simply start wrapping the thread around the end of the headband and use a little bit of tension so that you get a nice tapered end, and then secure it in place with a little bit of hot glue. Now you're ready to attach the fabric to the headband. To do this, just use hot glue. I noticed that the braided fabric does kind of stretch a little, so I did put a little bit of tension on the braid as I wrapped it around the headband, and what that does is it kind of allows those braided side pieces to bend over the edge of the headband so that you don't see the Purchased headband when it's on your head. So just kind of tug on it a little bit. Don't tug it too much or it will get too long, and keep adding glue. I like to work in short sections because the glue does dry fast, and since this is hot glue, you need to be very, very careful. Definitely do not recommend this project for any young person for that reason. To finish off the ends of the headband, you're going to need some 1-inch satin ribbon. I cut about a 2-inch piece and applied it to the end of the headband so it covered the very tip of the headband. So I put it on the inside of the headband first and then pulled it and wrapped it around to the front of the headband. Now you need to cover that raw edge of the ribbon right there. So what I do is take a second piece of ribbon and measure it to the size that I need and wrap it around so that it covers the sides of that other piece of ribbon. You don't need to finish off this ribbon with spray check or anything because the heat of the glue gun will keep it from fraying. So you just glue that second piece of ribbon to the inside of the headband. Again, be very, very careful. Hot glue is very hot. You might want to use a pencil or something when you push that ribbon into the glue, just to double check that you're not going to burn yourself. Put a little bit of tension on the ribbon, kind of manipulate it so that it looks nice and you have a finished edge on the end of your headband. And then the last thing you need to do is just trim away the excess little piece of ribbon that is left over. Here you can see the finished headband and a couple of other headbands that I have created as well. All of these fabrics are Liberty of London fabrics. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and hope to see you back here again.